Now, a lot of work can go into sketching and scamping up logo designs in the early stages, though ultimately we are going to need to finalize the design to create vector artwork. Now, this is one of the most crucial steps in the design process because this is where things start to become real and more decisive. Now, it can be tricky to convert your sketches into vector artwork, especially if you are not that experienced using vector programs like Adobe Illustrator or Affinity Designer. Now, if you are following along with this course and developing your own logo, you may have a completely different logo design to the one I have developed up to this point. And you may be wondering how you can convert that logo into vector artwork. So in this video, I'm going to discuss and demonstrate a few methods you can use to convert your logo sketches into vector artwork. So let's get into it. So here I am with my design process checklist. Once we have scamped up some of our ideas and outlined clear logo formulas, and we have checked each task, we can now move into step 1 in phase 3. So the first step in the visual artwork and design phase is convert sketch designs into vector artwork. Now, when it comes to converting your sketches into vector artwork, you have a few options. 1. Use the image trace tool. 2. Use the image trace tool and refine. 3. Trace using pen tools. And 4. Craft using shapes and strokes. So let's take a look at each option available to you. Now, this is going to be quite a long video as I give you an overview and showcase methods for each. If you want to skip ahead or back to any one of these options, you can do so easily. Timestamps are in the description. Okay, so before we get into this and start creating vector artwork, I want to do some quick housekeeping. Now, we are about to start creating some files as we develop our artwork, so we will need to save them in a place where we can easily find them in future. So with your project folder open, click into folder 3 design, click into folder 2 artwork and design, and in here you will see a folder called root blank. Now this is a pre-prepared folder structure we can use to place all our artwork inside going forward. So before we begin, let's duplicate the blank folder and rename it. So for the rest of this course, I'm going to be developing a logo design for my first root. So I'll rename this to root 1, and in here we will see additional folders, which we'll be working on next. Now normally, if I was developing logo designs for other routes, I'd create a folder for each. But because I'm going to demonstrate just one logo design for the rest of the course, I'll just prepare one folder. So if you're following along, be sure to create your new folder, and with our folder prepared, we can continue. So first off is option 1, use the image trace tool. So this is the quickest and easiest way to turn your sketches into vector artwork in Adobe Illustrator. However, keep in mind, you will need a really good drawing and scan of your logo first to get good results here. And chances are you may need to edit your image first before you use image trace. As I demonstrated in a previous video, I like to scamp up my logo designs to a good standard to test and demo my logo design before developing the artwork on computer. However, you may want to just draw a really good example of your logo to simply scan it in like I'm about to demonstrate. So here I am in Adobe Illustrator, and here I have a photo image of my logo mark I prepared in a previous video. If you want to follow along with this tutorial, you can get this example in the course project folder. The course folder comes with my complete logo design solution I will be demonstrating on this course, including all my design example files and documents at each step to aid your learning experience. The folder also comes with design resources, such as a logo design process checklist, process documents and templates, a project folder structure, color sample charts, and a logo proposal document example, all of which you can not only learn from, but use in your own design process. To get the full learning experience and use the resources to help develop your own logo project, I recommend you get the course folder. Download link with instructions is in the description. So with the course folder open, click into the resources folder, click into folder 4, tutorial, into folder 1, convert sketch to vector, into folder tutorial 1, and click on the illustrated doc labeled tutorial 1, and you will have the same document I have open here. So here I have an image of my scamp drawing which I have taken a photo of. And over here on the right, I have an example of some vector artwork extracted out of the image, so you can see what we are going to do here in this exercise. So to do this, I would first recommend you get a scan or a really good photo to maintain high quality. Now, this could easily be a drawing of your logo here. So if you're following along with this course and you have developed your own logo design, you can swap mine out for yours here. So right now, this image is not good enough to trace in Illustrator. As we can see, there is a lot of grayscaling around and creases on the paper, which is going to interfere with the image trace we are about to do. So before you use the image trace tool in Illustrator, I would always recommend you prepare your image for maximum results. So with my photo here in Illustrator as a link, I'm going to press and hold the Option button on the keyboard and double click on the image. Now this should open the image in Photoshop. So with the image open in Photoshop, I'm just going to do a few quick things to make it perfect to trace in Illustrator. So I'll come up to Image, Mode and hit Grayscale. Then I'll press Command L on Mac or Control L on Windows to activate levels. And I'll drag the left hand in and the right handle in. This should remove all the grayscale area and really push up the contrast like so. Once I'm happy, I'll click OK. So now I have a really clear image. Next, I'll use the brush tool, set it to white and just zoom in and draw and remove any imperfections around the image and around any lines. I can also change my brush to black and again draw and fill in any bits or smooth out any imperfections. Once happy, I'll close and save. And when I come back into Illustrator, the image will update and is now ready. So when you have a good quality example of your logo in Illustrator like this, it's pretty simple. First, select the image, then come up to Window and select Image Trace. Upon click, you will see a panel become visible. Now, if you have the control panel at the top, you will also see a button here as well. So with the panel open and my image selected, I'll hit the Trace button and Illustrator will then trace the image. Now, pay close attention to the panels here. Once traced, we can adjust a few options. Initially, we can toggle the threshold, and as we do that, we will change the level of detail in the trace. Now, if we click down on the advanced option, here we can toggle paths, corners, and noise. So I'll tweak these until my logo is looking good and as smooth as possible. Once happy, simply click the expand button in the control panel and the vector artwork will be split. Now, if we press A to activate the direct selection tool, you can click and select various parts of the artwork. So right now we want to get rid of the white and just keep the black. So here I can come over to the magic wand tool in Illustrator. I'll select the black and it should select all the black color. I'll press Command X on Mac or Control X on Windows to cut. Then I'll press Command A on Mac or Control A on Windows to select all the white. I'll press Delete to remove that. Then press Command V on Mac or Control V on Windows to paste back my black vector artwork. And just like that, we have converted our sketch into vector artwork. So with my new vector artwork, I can now save this into my project folder. So come up to File, Save As, and navigate to your project folder, into the Design folder, into the Artwork and Design folder, into the new folder we prepared earlier, into the Form folder, into folder 1, Workings, and I'll name this Listening Love Logo Mark and click OK. So now I have a copy of my first vector artwork. Now sometimes this may not be good enough. Tracing a sketch in Illustrator is great, but it is not always the most accurate. As you can see here, the edges are not as smooth as I'd like. So the next option we have is use the image tool and refine. So using the same technique I just demonstrated, you can trace your image to get vector artwork like this. Once converted, you can then use some tools to further refine your artwork. One technique you can use is to simplify your paths. So once you have traced your sketch and you have your vector artwork like this, if we press Command Y on Mac or Control Y on Windows, we can enter into outline mode. This will allow us to focus purely on the stroke lines of the artwork. So by pressing A to activate the direct selection tool, we can click and drag over the entire artwork, and this will reveal all the anchor points. And in this instance, we can see a lot. When using image trace, this can create a lot of anchor points which can make it difficult to manage. So to simplify this, we can come up to Object, scroll down to Path, then come across and click Simplify. Upon click, a menu will appear which we can toggle. Dragging left will remove points and dragging right will add them. So I'll click into the middle and click off and drag back over, and now we can see we have simplified the artwork. Initially, that may resolve some of the rough details that were there before. Now, with this done, it will make it a lot easier to refine and modify further. So another technique I find useful is the smooth tool. So with the artwork selected, with the direct selection tool, I'll come over to the tools menu and click and hold on the paintbrush tool and select the smooth tool. Now, if you cannot see this, simply click on the 3 dots at the bottom of the menu, locate the smooth tool in the draw menu and drag it over into your tools menu. With this selected, you can simply come and drag over the stroke line, and as you drag over, it will smooth out the stroke path. Now, this is a really good way to remove impurities from your artwork. So I'll continue doing this using the direct selection tool to select the outline stroke and then use the smooth tool to drag over the artwork. And after a little work, this will smooth out the overall artwork. Now, another technique is to simply use the pen tool. After simplifying the artwork and smoothing it out, there still may be some impurities you want to fix. So using the direct selection tool to select the stroke, we can come over to the pen tool, click and hold, and in this instance, I'll select the delete anchor point tool, and I can come and remove anchors easily. Now, the last technique is to just use the direct selection tool to edit curves. So using the direct selection tool to select the stroke, this will also reveal the handles on some of the anchor points. If some of the curves are not as smooth as you'd like, you can simply click on the anchor point and move it into a different position, and grab the handle to click and drag to alter the stroke. So after a while, tweaking your strokes, you may be able to refine your trace to a result you are happy with. Once done, we can press Command Y on Mac or Control Y on Windows to come out of outline mode, and we can see our artwork like so. So with the new vector artwork, I can either save or I can create a new version. So once again, come up to File, Save As, and navigate to your project folder, into the design folder, into the artwork and design folder, into the new folder we prepared earlier, into the form folder, into folder 1 workings, and I'll name this Logo Love Logo Mark version 2 and click OK. And I'll have a new copy of my vector artwork. So using a combination of the smooth tool, the pen tool and the direct selection tool, with a bit of work, you can refine your artwork really nice. Now, using this technique can work really well for more organic logo shapes. But if you're designing a logo with more angular and precise lines, curves and corners, perhaps for letter forms and type, this may not work so well. If this is the case, another option you have is to trace using the pen tools. So here I am back in Illustrator, and here I have a photo image of the word mark part of the logo I prepared in a previous video. Now over on the right here, you can see some vector artwork which has been created by tracing the photo example. Here I have some solid vector letter forms, and below we have a black and white shape with the letter forms cut out. To the right of this is the same vector artwork but with a gradient applied to demonstrate how seamless effects can be applied. In this quick tutorial, I'll show you how to trace a sketch using the pen tool and a quick tip on how to cut shapes out of other shapes easily to create negative space. If you want to follow along with this tutorial, you can get this example in the course project folder. So with the course project folder open, click into the resources folder, click into folder 4 tutorial, into folder 1 convert sketch to vector, into folder tutorial 2, and click on the Illustrator doc label tutorial 2, and you'll have the same document I have open here. So here I have an image of my scamp drawing which I have taken a photo of. This time I'm going for a more geometric approach. Now I could use the image trace technique here, but I don't think I'll get the clean result I'm after. So here I'm going to use the pen tool. So again, this could easily be a drawing of your logo. So if you are following along with this course and you have developed your own logo design which you want to trace using the pen tool, feel free to swap mine out for yours here. So this time I don't really need a sharp image of my scamp, just something clear enough to use as a reference. So I'll begin by clicking on my image and I'll just scale it down a little. With it selected, I'll come over to the transparency panel. If you cannot see this, come up to Window, scroll down, click on Transparency, and the panel should appear. And I'm going to set this to 30%. I want the image to be set in the background so I can use it as a reference. Next, I'll come over to the Layers panel, hit the lock on the layer, and add a new layer above. So now I'm set up to trace my image and it won't move the image reference below. So if I zoom in here, I can see my letter forms below. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to start with the letter P. So I'll press Command R on Mac or Control R on Windows to bring up my rulers, and I'm going to drag a guide down from the top and place it at the top of my letterform and one below on the baseline. Next, I'll bring one in from the left to the left side and one for the right side of the letterform. Now this is a photo ref below, so it's not perfect here, but I'll just use it as a guide. So let's look at how we can trace this and get a really nice clean shape. So I'll press P to activate the pen tool. Over in the fill and stroke, I'll make sure the fill is set to transparent and the stroke is set to black. I'll set my stroke to 1 and start to click. So I'll drop one at the bottom left corner, one on the first corner. Next, I'll drop one on the curve corner, one above, one across, then above to meet the guide, one down, and one to join the stroke. So here we have a really crude shape to trace the letterform. Now once this is complete, I'll use the direct selection tool to select an anchor point. I'll press and hold Shift to select another, and I'll use the arrow keys to move these into place. Now I would normally spend a bit more time on this to get it perfect, but I'll do this really quickly to save time for demonstration purposes. And I'll tweak this so the letterform thickness is consistent. Okay, so I have a really blunt trace here. Now here is a really nice feature in Illustrator. So with the direct selection tool, I'll click the top corner anchor point, hold Shift and select the point below, and we will see these little white circles in the corner. Now if I click and drag one of these in, we can toggle the curves like so on both corners consistently. Awesome, right? So I'll just drag this in to roughly match the curve of my sketch, and now I have added a curve to the stroke line nice and easy. So if you ever want to get a curve on your line, you can consider just dropping down anchor points over the curve initially as a point like I did, and just pull the circle in to add the right amount of curve. Now bear in mind, this feature may not be available in older versions of Illustrator, so you may need an up-to-date version if this feature is not working like this for you. Okay, so now it's a case of doing the same for the outline stroke. I'll click the top corner anchor point, hold Shift and select the point below. Again, we can see these little white circles in the corner. I'll click and drag one of these in and boom. Now I'll come over to the layers panel, toggle off the guide layer below, press Command : on Mac or Control : on Windows to toggle away the guides. I'll come over and swap color fill, and we can see a nice trace of the letterform. Now if we are careful, with the direct selection tool, we can reselect the anchors for the top side and below, and this will let us readjust the curve, so we can tweak until we are happy. Perfect. So what I just demonstrated there was a really simple way to trace a letterform. Now this technique would work for any type or any shape you want to trace. So now I have my letterform, it's now a case of copying and pasting and duplicating the style. So I'll copy and paste the shape, and with the selection tool active, I'll click and rotate, hold Shift to snap at a 90-degree angle, and I'll place this over the U letterform. Now with the direct selection tool active, I'll click and drag over the top two anchor points and the right, and click and drag the top strokes up to meet the guide. With the direct selection tool still active, I'll come and click on the anchor points on the outside on the left and press delete to remove them. I'll click on each anchor point and drag up while holding Shift to keep it straight. And I'll press P to activate the pen tool, click on the left point, and then click on the right point to join. I'll toggle off the guide layers, and now I have a new letterform. Easy. Now if I feel the U is a bit too narrow here, I'll use the direct selection tool to click over the anchor points on the left. With them selected, I'll use the arrow keys to nudge them to the left a bit, just to open up the letter form a little bit more. So one last go. So I'll copy the U letter form and paste, drag over onto the letter form O. With the direct selection tool, I'll select the top anchor points and drag them down halfway while holding Shift. I'll copy and paste, rotate, place on top, make sure the top part sits flush to the guide, select them both, hit the Align Center button, come over to the Pathfinder panel and hit the Unite button, zoom in, press Command Y on Mac or Command Y on Windows to go into outline mode. I'll press minus on the keyboard to activate the Remove Anchor Point tool and click on any points to remove imperfections. I'll press Command Y on Mac or Control Y on Windows to come back into normal mode, and now we have a new letterform. So this is a technique I often use to trace custom shapes and type that I may develop for a logo design from a sketch. Using the same technique I just demonstrated, I'll copy and paste my shapes to clone the same curves, and I'll use the pen tool and the shape tool to create other letter forms, and soon I'll complete the set. Then it's just a case of selecting all my letter forms individually and setting the appropriate tracking, like so. So with the new vector artwork, I can now save this into my project folder. So again, come up to File, Save As, and I'll navigate to the project folder, into the design folder, into the artwork and design folder, into the new folder we prepared earlier, into the form folder, into folder 1, workings, and this time I'll name this Listening Love logo type and click OK, and I'll have a new copy of my vector artwork. Now, one last tip. When creating logos, sometimes you may want to cut your shapes and letters out of a block to capture and create negative space, or just invert the effect. To do this is really easy. So I'll move my letter forms up and out of the way, I'll copy and paste and place them below. In the Pathfinder panel, I'll click Unite so it combines all the artwork into one solid vector shape. With the Shape Builder tool, I'll draw a shape over the top like so, I'll change the fill color to yellow, right click and send to back. I'll reposition the box under the type, and when I'm ready, I'll select both with the selection tool, and in the Pathfinder, I'll hit the Exclude button. This will then cut the top shape out of the shape below, kind of like a cookie cutter. This is a quick technique to cut shapes out of other shapes to create negative space. Now we can treat this as a single piece of vector artwork and even apply a gradient effect. Now notice here we have this strange thing going on inside the letter O. To fix this, select the entire artwork, come over to the menu in the Pathfinder panel, click and select Make Compound Shape, and that should flatten the entire artwork again into one shape so the gradient runs smoothly throughout. So that is a technique you can use to trace using the pen tool. Now, depending on the complexity of your logo design, tracing a sketch can be really time consuming and fiddly. Now, I just demonstrated an easy technique. Now, if this has not helped you, then you may need more training. If you need to learn more about how to use the pen tool in Illustrator to trace a sketch, I have another video that goes into this in a lot more depth. So if you need to convert your sketch into vector artwork, pause the course now, watch the more advanced video, and this should help you convert your sketch design into vector artwork. Links to these in-depth tutorials can be found in the description or in the PDF index that accompanies this course. Once you have converted your design into a vector artwork, you can come back and resume the course. And be sure to save your work into the project folder in the location I specified earlier, as we will be coming back to this soon. Now, in this video, I demonstrated how I converted my sketch into vector artwork. Now, you are welcome to follow along with my example, but if you're following along with this course and creating your own design, I would recommend you convert your own drawings into vector artwork. So if you're following along with your own design, take a pause and carry out your process. Before moving on, undertake the same process I have just demonstrated to create your own vector artwork. Be sure to share your vector artwork and any development over on Instagram. You can tag me at Gareth David Studio or tweet me so I can see them. I'd love to see what you can come up with. Remember, you will be able to use this artwork later when you come to build a client proposal document later in the process. So once you have prepared your vector artwork, let's continue. So at this point, you may be wondering, what about color? Well, at this early stage in the design process, I am not going to explore color just yet. Developing vector artwork is just the first part of the logo development. Now, we will get to color soon, but we won't explore color until we have completed our final logo composition. So those are some straightforward techniques you can consider when attempting to convert your sketches into vector artwork in Adobe Illustrator. Now, tracing using the pen can take a while. It can be fiddly and it may not always be the right approach. In Illustrator, there is another way we can save time. Another option you could consider is to craft using strokes and shapes. So here is an example of the same logo we live traced earlier. In this example, you can see that the lines are sharp and perfectly equidistant from each other. To craft this, I used a series of strokes and shapes to get the consistency perfect. In the next video, I'm going to demonstrate how you can create a more technical design using shapes and strokes in Adobe Illustrator. So see you in the next video.